All right, this is RoRo, and look, we're buddies now. RoRo, good job, buddy. This is RoRo, and this is RoRo's roadmap to success. Obviously, we're buddies at this point. So basically, I'm going to just summarize the stuff we went over in the session so you can watch it later on as many times as you want. So the first thing we talked about was the importance of exercise. And I talked about the doggy stairmaster. Go get yourself a retractable leash. That's the only time I would use this, just for this. So you show them you have a treat, remember, with an empty stomach, throw the treat to the bottom of the stairs and come up with a funny word that means go down sound. Call it like Cabo or Cancun. Remember, treat always goes in the mouth first. They hear the command word immediately after. Then show him you have another treat and he runs back up the flight of stairs, and then you give him that treat and you call it Denver. And then you keep throwing it up and down the first time with an empty stomach until he says, I'm not going down there anymore. And now we know what his maximum number is. You're going to go on the table now, huh, buddy? He likes these bully sticks. So while we're talking about it, these are from the Natural Dog Company. There's a company called Natural Dog Company. It's different. And so here, how about if I hold this and you chew on that? Is that a good deal? It's like, no, I want a fresh one. All right, so basically these are bully bites and these are odor free. I would just get you can get bully sticks, they're more expensive, but since he's a little dog, I would just get him a small one. And the bully bites will work great. We'll give you an appetizer sized one. How about that? This is like appetizer sized. There we go. All right, so basically, if you have these, remember, if he has cortisol in his blood, he's not going to be interested in chewing these. So when you have a guest come over, if you give him one of these, when he starts chewing it, you know that's an indication that he's gotten to a relaxed enough state of mind. Okay, so other forms of exercise, once you know that maximum number for the treats, then you want to exercise him 50 to 75% of that maximum number. I'm guessing his number is probably going to be somewhere between about 15 and 25, which you can probably do in about 2 to 3 minutes. You can do it multiple times a day. Remember, exercise is best for dogs if we sprinkle it throughout the day in small energy little nuggets. And so he's going to, oh, he wants the treats. I see. You're smarty pants. And we'll take those over here too. All right. I have more treats for you, buddy. You got to come over here to get them, though. But that's probably going to be a pretty funny video when we're looking at it. Okay, so now I'm making the treat available, but I'm not calling him. When he comes over and gets the treat, good things happen. If he doesn't want to come, it's up to him. So I'm force-free. All right, other forms of exercise. Using the nose is very stimulating. So when you are walking him, remember to let him sniff as long as it's safe to do so. They burn more energy from sniffing than they do from walking. So think of the duration of your walk as opposed to a circuit. I'm going to walk this way for 10 minutes if I have 20 minutes, and I cross the street at 10-minute mark, come back and fresh sniffs on the other side of the street. And it's very draining, it's very calming, and it is relaxing for them as well. If it bumps, then that's him. Okay, so let me see. Other things, get a snuffle mat, S-N-U-F-F-L-E. Get it from Amazon or Chewy. They're about probably about $20. And you can feed him out of the snuffle mat, and also the Omega Paw treat ball. And I would probably get him the large Omega Paw treat ball. The large one is not that big. So basically, there we go. He's like, I want to get back over there. All right, I got treats for you, buddy. Come. That's that passive training that I'm going to talk about in a minute. Okay, so that's exercise. Also laser you could potentially use. And scent games. So hiding treats around. Every time he finds a treat, come up with a command word, call it search or find or hunt or whatever it is. After a while, then you can say hunt, and he runs around using his nose to find them, and that's draining of energy for him. Good job, buddy. We're going to talk about rules now and about not come. Remember, just say the command word, and the treat goes in the mouth first for any activity, then he hears the command word after. That was a demand for attention. That's what I talked about earlier. We're going to talk about them. You're a little bit ahead of the game. We're going to talk about petting with a purpose in a minute. So for dogs, remember, anything your dog is doing when you pet it. If I pet a dog when he's fearful, I'm going to make him more fearful. If he is nervous, I can lay my hand on him, and that is associated with touch. That touch is associated with affection, but as soon as I start petting, I'll make it worse. Anything your dog is doing in your presence that you don't disagree with has your seal of approval. So you want to disagree right away, unless the dog is trying to get a response from you. If he's barking for your attention and you say no, good attention, bad attention, same thing. So he barks at you, you're just stone deaf to it. But as soon as he sits or does things you want, then you give him attention. That's the passive training we'll talk about in a minute. So before you have guests over, exercise him before the guests come over. Make sure he has 10 minutes to recover, and that's why that doggy stairmaster is so helpful. Give him a bully stick, and when he starts chewing it, you know he's relaxed.
When you say doggy stairmaster, again, you're just talking about
throwing the treats up and down the stairs.
Not like on the stairway.
On the stairway, yeah.
Okay.
So up and down the stairs. And that way he's burning that energy in a very quick fashion. You can set him up for success. Like I said, Before you take him for a walk, you can exercise him. Just give him 10 minutes to recover before a guest comes over. If they're going to use construction or anything like that, you set him up for success by taking that, give him that exercise first. Remember, exercise is best every couple of hours. If he's being naughty, ask yourself how long it's been since he's exercised. If it's longer than an hour, he needs a little bit of exercise. And if you feed him out of the Omega Paw treat ball and the snuffle mat, that's 2 forms of exercise you get from feeding him, which you're going to do every day anyways. Talking about food, right now he's free fed. Dogs spend 90% of their time in the wild looking for food. So when we put it all in a bowl, then we take away a lot of their drive in life, and also they sometimes overeat. Like myself, he probably could lose a pound or 2. And so what we're going to do is I'd like you to go to structured feeding. You put the food down, he's not allowed to eat it, and then you eat something in 5 or more bites. Piece of celery, carrot. If you need an actual meal great before the head, that's great. But if not, when you get done eating, you call him, invite him over, say his name. When he takes his first bite of food, say sushi or whatever your name is. You're gonna do a circuit, aren't you? You're gonna do that again. Okay. And so, and as soon as he sniffs the bowl, he's on the clock. As soon as he walks away more than 5 feet, I pick up the bowl, I dump it empty, and I put the empty bowl back down. And you should feed him the amount, split the amount that you feed him into 2 servings. So he should clean his plate. I want him to get used to doing that.
He wants to be picked up.
Tell him to sit.
Okay, sit, sit, sit. RoRo, sit, sit.
And they have something called an opposition reflex. They will always push against you. You said sit 5 times.
Okay,
Sit once, and then he doesn't get the reward.
Oh.
I'm not going to pick you up. I asked you the smallest thing you do as a dog and sit. And if you can't be bothered to do that, I can't be able to. But if I just sit, I do it the 19th time. Keep it coming. Keep it coming.
Sit, RoRo.
And
Sit.
again, that's 3. So say, and you're also saying it with a little inflection.
Oh.
RoRo. If you want to, the way that I would do it is like this. RoRo. So if you want, you can. I'm going to use a treat. Sit.
Yeah, we don't really do that very often, so.
And this is why sit. That's passive training. I wouldn't normally do that. If you tell him to sit and he doesn't do it, and eventually he gets the treat, he doesn't really have that motivation.
Okay.
So tell him to sit once. He has 3 seconds to comply. If he doesn't sit, he doesn't get the attention or picked up or whatever it was.
Okay.
Now, if I want something from you, I want you to pick me up. I'm going to go sit in front of you. In the dog world, we call this manding or learning to mand, which means the dog can influence us. It's really operant conditioning. I sit in front of her. She pets me. I jump up. She becomes boring. She tells me to sit. If I don't sit, she ain't picking me up. And you have to, I don't say tough love, but he has to understand that this is the way you get your attention. That's why I have to live like that. All right. So, for going back to rules, I would suggest not allowing the furniture for at least 3 months. It takes 66 days for the myelin sheath to start developing on the neural pathways, but he has to be off of it. Every time he goes back on, you don't go back to
like
0.
Sitting on the table.
But you reset, and that's probably not something you really want him to do. And it doesn't bother you, but if you have a guest here and they're eating, you don't want to do that.
Exactly.
So if he practices doing now, then he thinks it's okay to do it later. So if you take away the furniture, at the same time, give him a dog bed. Now to do the dog bed, what you do is I would get another dog bed that you put here, and this would have a different name than that one. So that teach the dog to go to the dog bed. And also dogs are colorblind. So you want to get a light cream, light gray, or white color, no pattern in it. And that one's okay, but there are some crevices in it, so a treat might fall in a crevice, he might not see it.
Oh.
I prefer like a cushion more like this color. So if I put a treat here,
he can see it.
For contrast purposes, he can see that really easy. Okay. So the first way I do is I take the treat, I throw it on there. Their eyes are very attracted to movement, so throw the treat.
Let me say sit and see if he'll do it.
He's kind of in an awkward position with the books. I would move the books off to the side.
Here you go, honey.
There you go. But remember, only once, and say it kind of more like an order than an ask.
Sit, sit, RoRo. Sit, sit.
But still 4 times. So remember, only say it once. If he doesn't do it the first time, now you can pet him. I wouldn't ideally do this because you told him, but right now that's passive training. And right now we're jumping it up. But if you tell me sit, 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 and I don't sit, and then I'm going to sit in my time, well, then I'm not listening or respecting you. So remember, sitting is the smallest possible thing he can do. And if you don't give him that affection, he's more inclined to want to do that. Okay, so going back to I talked about the feeding, right? And dumping the food. Okay. Yeah. So basically, for the dog bed, show him you have a treat, drop it on it, and again, it's a light color. As soon as he sees it, he'll jump off, and when he licks it up, say the word Jamaica, or Venice, or whatever the word is. A funny word. Remember, use fun command words for all new commands. So you call it Jamaica. So he jumps off. The second he licks up, you say Jamaica. The context is Jamaica is only said when I'm on the dog bed with at least one paw and a treat goes in my mouth.
Okay.
Wait for him to vacate it, then throw another one there. Do this about 10 or 15 treats. After a while, he'll start like checking out the dog bed. Now you can also leave one there and not say anything to him. These are flat on one side. You can kind of leave it like that. And you can go ahead. I don't have to do it.
So sorry.
Don't worry about it at all.
Okay.
I'm on autopilot. I do this all the time.
Okay.
She has an awesome, the Guardian has an awesome date, and she needs to get ready. So I'm going to go solo and explain the rest of this. Okay, so the second way is I leave the treat there, and this is why I like this color, so he can just see it from across the room. He runs over and licks it up, and you just say Jamaica. The third way is I lead the dog into it, put him into a sit or lay down, and put the treat in his mouth and say Jamaica again. These are 3 ways to entice the dog to go there. The next thing I want to do is really operant conditioning. When he goes there on his own, and he's been encouraged to because he's gotten all these treats, now when he goes there, we throw a treat there. So now when I go to the dog bed, it rains treats, and I hear the word Jamaica or whatever the word is. It won't take very long. I just did this with a client this afternoon, and within an hour, the dog, Shiba Inu, is very determined, was sitting and lying on the dog bed without any prompting. And by saying the command word, eventually you can say Jamaica, and he knows where you want him to go. Remember, the worst punishment is to be excluded from the group. So put it right here, wherever you want. That way he can be close to you, but he doesn't have the same height or rank as you. I would get those X mats. Letter X, M-A-T-S. You're gonna need probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 7 of them to put on this. And they're little white plastic books. They have these little plastic nubs on them. They don't feel good to lay on. So that way, when you're sitting here watching TV, oh, buddy, I'd let you out, man, but RoRo, the white thing is there. I can't, but the dog bed, hey, man, look, there's a treat there. And so he's conditioned to go there, and good things happen when he goes there. And this, for a dog, the higher they sit, the more rank or social status they have. Letting them sit at the same height as us is one of the ways we say we're the peers. But because he's reactive, and also if a guest is the same height as him, he sees himself as that same rank or even more rank. So after 90 days, 90 days is the minimum length of time for the rules to develop the neural pathway of the myelin sheath. After that, and I usually say as long as the problem's going on. So as long as he's still barking at people and lunging and nipping at ankles, not allowed on the furniture. Eventually he's allowed on the furniture with an invitation and only for good behavior. So if you invite him up and then he starts barking, he would lose the privilege. I don't push him off completely. I push him to the edge so they feel like they're about to fall off, and when he jumps off, then I would put in context and say the word off. So now we're helping him understand. And if you want to teach him to get off, what you do is show me how to treat, throw it off on the bed, on the floor. When he jumps down and licks it up, then you would say the word off after the treat goes in his mouth to put it in context. Remember, many people put things out of context. You come home from work, the dog's excited, jumping up, and you say, calm down. The only time I hear calm down was when I'm excited. So clearly calm down means get excited. So what we want to do instead is put things in context. So when he's calm on the bed, you're going to say settle. So now when he hears settle, he is in that calm state of mind. When he sits, you pet him and say sit. And I'm going to talk about that for passive training here in a sec. Okay, so other rules. When you're feeding him, he should eat after you. If you're not going to eat a real meal, just eat 5 bites of a chip or cracker. And I talked about it earlier. Put food in his bowl. Don't let him eat it. You eat 5 bites or something. And then you invite him to come over and eat it. If he doesn't come over within 1 minute, or if he comes over and then doesn't eat, as soon as he walks away, pick up the bowl, dump it empty, put the empty bowl back down. He will come and lick the empty bowl, I promise you. After that, and then he doesn't eat again until the next meal. And eventually, when he goes over and does eat, come up with your command word. Call it sushi or whatever you want to call it. So every time I eat, I hear sushi. So sushi means I go and eat. Eating is the most important activity for dogs. So if you have dominion over this, this really elevates him to think of himself as being your subordinate, because it's the most important activity for dogs. Sit. That's passive training. You dropped that. That's on you, not on me, buddy. Okay, you got it. Okay, so other rules. When you're eating here, he should not be allowed, obviously he's not on the furniture, he's not allowed in this L shape around. Now, I didn't get a chance to show it to you because you're rushing to go on your amazing date, but if you go to doggonproblems.com and click on where it says Dog Training Tips, I have thousands of tutorial videos like the one we shot earlier. Type in the word invisible in the search box, and I show you how to enforce invisible boundary using those 3 escalating consequences that I went over with you off camera. If you have any questions about it, please message me. What we want to do is we want to recreate situations where he doesn't behave the way we want, so we can help him practice and learn the behavior. And like I talked about in the video above, we make it the easiest version of the activity, then we break the activity down to individual steps. I practice step 1 over and over, just standing, just standing, just standing. Once he's not doing that, then standing and taking 1 step, then standing and taking 2 steps. Now, in the video above, I went over really counter conditioning exercise. You don't necessarily have to do that, but you want to teach the dog how to be calm or how to behave throughout whatever the activity is. Okay, so when you're in the kitchen, should not be allowed in the kitchen when you're preparing food. The rest of the time you can come or go. And if you look at the write-up that's right below this one, I'm blanking on the dog's name, but again, if you just type in invisible or invisible boundary, you'll be able to see an example of how to keep the dog out, and message me if you can't figure it out. I'm happy to come by or just talk to you about it over the phone. Other rules, you have to sit at the door. I go to the door, I say sit 1 time, and you have a bad habit of doing the things multiple times. Remember, the more you say it, the less you mean it. He's just not going to listen to you. So really just try to remember just 1 time. And don't ask, can you sit? No, I can't right now. Sit. And if he sits in 3 seconds, he gets a reward. If he doesn't sit within 3 seconds, you're on to other things. That motivates him to want to do it. Same thing, if I don't eat, she doesn't beg me, and the food goes away. And then I have to wait till the next meal. Eventually I get really hungry, then when that food's presented, boy, I'm going to eat. Then I hear that command word. So for the door, go to the door, say sit 1 time. If he doesn't sit within 3 seconds, walk away. Make sure you sit down for each time that you walk away. Sit down and wait 1 minute. Ask your Google or Siri or whatever for a 1 minute timer. After 1 minute, go back there and command the dog to sit again. Doesn't sit this time within, I walk away for 2 minutes. Next time I walk away and sit down for 4 minutes, and then for 8 minutes. I keep walking away until eventually when I say sit, he sits at the door. And once he sits, then I open the door. So sitting causes the door to open. So for that reason, I would have him probably leashed up ahead of time. That way, if you open the door and there's a dog passing by, like what happened earlier, you're stepping on the leash, he can't run out to get him. But the door needs to open as soon as he sits. That's what kind of syncs the 2 things up, and then he understands that sitting is a great way to get to go out the door. Okay, so those are some examples of rules. There are probably other rules that you can go. If you want to I want to put the leash on you, you have to sit first. Same thing, sit. If he doesn't sit, don't even pick up the leash first. Go to where the leash is and say sit. If he doesn't sit, don't start any other parts of the process. And the leash, this is a great one to practice when you're not planning on going out for a walk. So you go to go where the leash is, he follows you, say sit. If he doesn't sit, walk away and sit down. Next time, wait, you can wait the 1 minute, 2 minute, 4 minute if you want. But the idea for doing this is when you're not planning on taking for a walk, we break the association. So I tell him to sit. If he sits, then I attach the leash. Or excuse me, if he sits, then I reach for the leash. If he gets up, I pull my hand back and tell him to sit. If he sits in that 3 second window, I reach again. He gets up, I pull it back and say sit. If he sits again, then I reach again. And if he gets up, I put it back down. This time I would just wait. And if he sits in that 3 second window, then I would reach again. So we're teaching him when I'm leashing you up, I expect you to be seated. And any other activity causes the leashing process to stop. But staying seated and calm is going to allow me to do that. Speaking of calm, he, like many dogs, has gotten in trouble when he's been overstimulated. And so what you want to do when he's playing with other dogs, if he starts getting past what you call what I call level 5 energy, the midway point, put your hands, I was going to say paws, right here on his inner thigh and pull him away from the other dogs. Don't wait for him to get in a fight. Remember, the intensity level is what we're looking at. In our puppy classes, we teach people to do this when they're puppies, and at the first 2 classes, they're constantly going over, they're giving them timeouts. They're like, Jesus, is he ever going to learn this? By the 4th, 5th, or 8th week, the dogs are self-policing. They know if I go beyond level 5 energy, my guardian is going to give me a timeout, so I'll self-regulate. If we can keep him from getting too stimulated, that's going to help him behave much better. Now, the rules that we went over, it's hard to see because it's not a direct line, but the rules and that's in the structure I'm going to talk about through Petting with a Purpose and Passive Training are what is going to cause him to listen to you. If he doesn't see and respect you as an authority figure, you can tell him all the commands you want. He's not going to do it. And remember, once he's reactive, he's in a hysteria. He's not going to hear you. Just pull him away. Lift him up if you have to. Try not to lift him up. Okay, so when you have a guest come over, if you let him run around, he's going to get more worked up. So sometimes people will tether a dog. So you take a leash, run it, he didn't like that, take a leash, run it around the leg of the chair and run it through the handle of the leash. Now he has like a 5.5 foot zone. And you can feel more comfortable if he's over there and he can't get to the guest if the guest does stand up or do something. Now that's not ideal because dogs do get a little bit frustrated if they're on a tether like that, but you can use that in a short period of time when you're having guests come in, so that way the more he runs around, the more worked up he gets. So if you can help him not have as much freedom, he's going to not be able to get so out of balance, and it's not going to take him so long to calm down. But remember, the more worked up he gets, the longer it's going to take. And remember, excited is not the same thing for happy. So we take him out for a walk. Don't say, let's go for a walk. You would go for a walk? We get them all worked up, and then we wonder why they can't listen. The energy he has in the house is the energy he's going to carry with him on the walk. So practice leashing him up calmly, and as soon as he's not calm, that's what stops the process. Eventually, he learns to stay calm throughout the whole deal. Now, you pet your dog so much, he doesn't even have to ask for attention, and he takes it for granted. He thinks it's his divine right. And if he's also on top of you when a guest is here, he's in possession of you. That's another reason why I'd like to have him on the floor, and that way that he sees the distinction between, and you saw he was jumping up on the counter. It's funny, but if you're eating and the guest is eating, the guest is not going to say anything. They have a social pressure, but then, it can be intimidating for the dog because I don't want the dog to bite me, and the dog already nips, and now the dog's looking me in the eye. The dog's down here. That helps the dog identify as a follower. So instead of petting him as much as you are now, you can pet him as much as you want. He just has to do something to earn it. So you're going to tell him to sit one time. If he's already sitting here, ask him to sit here or somewhere else, or tell him to lie down. If he doesn't do it within 3 seconds, remember, don't repeat it. Tell him to do it once. If he doesn't do it, then show him, I have other things to do. Playing hard to get works great for dating, and works great for dogs. Do it my way and you get rewarded. Do it anything else, nothing happens. No punishment, but you don't get the reward. After a while, he will recognize if I can't tell her anymore what to do, I have to ask. And better than ask, I have to pay for her privilege of her attention. And he'll start coming and sitting in front of you to prepay for attention. When he does, make sure to pet under the chin. Remember, it facilitates that nose-up orientation. So avoid petting on top of the head. You can pet him anywhere you want except for here. But if all things are equal, pet him under his chin and facilitate that nose up. And then say just the word sit. They hear the first word you say. And if he doesn't sit, then he doesn't get the attention. So you tell him to sit, he sits, you pet him on the chin and say his word sit. Now, I use the watchword paycheck. You're solo here, but if a guest comes in and they see that you're petting him and standing up, they say paycheck, you stop petting. And even if you want to pet him, you still tell him to sit. If he doesn't sit, he doesn't get that attention. You're not going to like it for a couple days, but after a couple days, he'll recognize, I have to do this. And sitting is a more subordinate, less authoritative position for him. So if he starts practicing sitting to ask for it, that's showing that he's adopting a follower's mindset, and that will have a direct correlation of how reactive he is about nipping people's ankles and the rest of that stuff. So that's petting with a purpose. If you get in the habit of petting with a purpose, every time you pet, it increases his respect for you as an authority figure, it boosts his self-esteem and confidence, it helps him practice self-control and self-restraint, and it also helps him practice the basic command. Now, passive training is different. Passive training is operant conditioning. Every time your dog comes to you, pet him and say, come. Sits, pet him and say, sit. Lays down, crash. Brings you all a toy, name all your individual toys. You're not telling him to do it, you're not enticing him, you're just recognizing and rewarding him. Remember, most of us train our dogs to do the wrong thing. They jump at our guests, we tell them no. Good attention, bad attention, same thing. He barks, we say no. Well, instead, what we want to do is if he comes, we pet. If he sits, we pet. If he lays down, we pet. And now he's going to start emulating those behaviors to get your attention, because good attention, bad attention, same thing. The bad behavior, barking, she doesn't even look at me. I know you don't want him to bark here, but I promise you, every time you correct him for barking, you're going to make him do it more. So you want to extinguish that behavior, and the best way to do it is through the positive aspect by rewarding the things that you do like. Remember, use passive training for this for feeding him. Every time he takes his first bite of food, call it sushi. When you attach the leash, call it wardrobe. Every time you're in the elevator, you say elevator. You don't necessarily need to, but this way you can help the dog feel more and more relaxed. Now I can tell he's got some cortisol in his blood. Little sounds he's jumpy towards. Now you can use counter conditioning for that as well. Let's say and I'll just describe it real quick here so you can do it yourself. Arrange to have a friend outside in the hallway, and then basically have them kind of stomp on one stomp right outside your door. Now what I might do is either smash a treat and let him chew on it first, or give him the treat, and while he's chewing it, on my earpiece, I tell the person whatever the code is. I usually don't say now, because then the dog recognizes. Maybe I say this time, today, anytime I say a color in the sentence, I want you to stomp once. So do it the same way I did in the video above. So you say blue, and they stomp. You give them a treat, and then say blue, and then they stomp. You do that twice, and then the next time you say blue, they stomp, then you give them a treat. You can do this with also knocks at the door. I do this with doorbells, all sorts of different things. The idea is to extinguish that, so when he hears sounds outside, he doesn't think it's something that he should react to. it's something good, but we also have to demote him by taking away his guard dog capabilities by giving rules and structure. Let me see. Remember, there's escalating consequences on how to keep the dog out of the kitchen and how to disagree with the dog. That's something for you to do, not for your guests to do. So if you have any questions on that or anything else, make sure you let me know. Now, it's very normal to have questions. I throw a lot of people. You're going to be in a much better position because you study the human version of the subject matter. But there are some distinctions. Remember, any attention is validating, so don't pet the dog. If you have any questions, make sure you let me know. Ro-Ro. Ro! Ro-Ro-Ro! Here you go, buddy. You want a treat? Ro-Ro! He's more interested in his guardian. She's getting ready for an awesome time out in town. There you go, buddy. You want to come and get that one? So I'm thinking about it. All right, well, that was Ro, and I'm David, and this is Ro's Roadmap to Success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog. Only sometimes you mean it.